Hello, everyone. Can you imagine the concept of extinction? Most life on Earth ceasing to exist with only fossils as evidence? Well, we might have to grapple with that in just a few generations. But why? Well, we've all been raised, taught that climate change is going to cause unrepairable damage to our world, our life, and our society as a whole, and all the species we inhabit this world with. But what causes climate change? Why is it such a existential crisis to us? Well, basically, climate change is the process of the world heating up to the point where different areas across the world become uninhabitable. Uh, it'll be hotter year round, though sea levels will rise as the ice caps begin to melt. It's overall a very bad thing to happen to all life on Earth. And according to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and I quote, the balance of evidence suggests that there is a discernible human influence on global climate. Now, what does that mean? It means that us as humans are causing a lot of this issue with climate change. And specifically, that issue is coming from fossil fuels and the burning of said fossil fuels for electricity, for energy, to fuel our way of life. Again, according to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, 3 of the 5 years, 1995, 1996, and 1998, added to the instrumental record since the SAR are the warmest in the instrumental record of global temperatures, consistent with the expectation that increases in greenhouse gases will lead to continued long-term warming. And those years were mentioned because this article is from 2001. So what they are basically saying is that global temperatures have been consistently rising year after year after year. And this is bad because, as I said earlier, ice caps can melt, sea levels will begin to rise, coastal cities could be inundated within our lifetime. And I'm sure we've all heard of Florida being underwater by such and such year. And this is terrible for many reasons, such as many areas of the world being uninhabitable, causing mass migration, causing many species across the world to not evolve fast enough to go extinct because they are not prepared to face these challenges head on. These processes usually take thousands of years, not decades. So we're facing a mass extinction crisis because of human-made global warming through greenhouse gases. Now that is a serious problem and a very daunting existential one. So what can we do to that, right? How are we supposed to stop that, right? It seems almost comical, the impending doom of it all. Well, there is actually a source of energy out there that can provide us with the energy needed to continue our way of life without sacrificing our creature comforts, but at the same time contributing absolutely nothing to the greenhouse gas problem, therefore slowing down and ultimately reversing the issues of climate change. And that would be nuclear energy. Now, according to ScienceDirect.com, a reputable science journal, and I quote, the emphasis should be on converting the major part of the world's electrical energy generation capacity from fossil fuels to nuclear fission. This can be realistically achieved within a few decades, as already has been done in France during the 1970s and 1980s. Now, what does that mean? Well, here we have a clear example of a country going above and beyond in their own nation to switch from fossil fuels to nuclear energy. And this is great because in this country, it's shown that it is not only possible, but it's doable and within just 20 years. And 20 years might seem like a long time for you and me, but remember, 20 years might be all that we have. So the groundwork has already been laid down. For example, America is already the world's largest producer of nuclear energy. We're just such a large country, it's nowhere near enough, right? But we can do it. It is very much possible. And countries like France, which is a much smaller country than America, already use nuclear fission to power most of their country. So that gets the concern of how it's going to be done out the way. But what is What about nuclear energy itself? Does nuclear energy not make nuclear bombs? Uh, is that not a worry about nuclear energy as well? Well, according to the US Department of Energy, every aspect of their design is different, even down to the material that generates a chain reaction. So, nuclear bombs and nuclear energy are actually two very different processes that have very little in common with each other. For example, the material that goes into both nuclear energy and nuclear weapons is uranium, and uranium has to go through a process of enrichment. For nuclear weapons, you need enrichment of 90%, which is a very complicated and long process, very advanced. But for nuclear energy, you only need to consistently have it at 5%. So that could be very easily monitored, very easily tracked, and very preventable in terms of creating nuclear weaponry and proliferating war. So nuclear energy is not only better in terms of reducing greenhouse gases, in terms of the environment, it's also provable. It's also been proven, and it's already been laid out for countries like France. It's already been proven, and it is a very different process to nuclear weapons and its proliferation. So that is why I believe nuclear energy is the way of the future, and why we should switch to it to reduce the effects of greenhouse gas. And it's possible by sharing information and initiatives with the people around you about why nuclear energy is important and why it can be the solution to our greenhouse problem. Thank you.